Hey guys, welcome to the next video. So for this video, I thought we'd go through like a profit and loss, just pretend little case study to where we can go through the financials and go through how it would actually evaluate it, make decisions on what the business could be worth, how we could see angles to where we could improve the business, things that we need to be aware of, and then use that information. We'll create like fake scenarios about the vendor, how the business is sort of running, etc., just to make things easier and explain the video a bit better. And then we'll come up with, okay, how would we prepare this and show this to the bank, and how we'll come up with purchase prices and sort of get and progress this deal further and further. So I've not looked at this P&L before, so we're going to be looking at it live together and evaluating what we would do here. So we're doing a HVAC type company, air conditioning company from the looks of it. And so let's just go by the revenue. So we've got service and repair, new installation, maintenance. So 35% of revenue is repair, 53% is installation and maintenance contracts. So this would be interesting. The first thing it points out to me is, okay, how many people are working inside this business and where is this revenue divided up on? And let's just say 53% of the revenue is with the vendor. Then if it's 53% of the revenues with the vendor, we need to ask ourselves, is the vendor staying on? Because if they're not, then we're losing potentially half our revenue. But then we can also think, okay, what is sort of what is the skill level, and how easy could it be to replace this vendor? Could the answer be just, okay, we go to a recruiter or a headhunter and we pay $10,000-$15,000 to replace that individual with someone who's just as qualified and has the same amount of skill? So that could be a $10,000 fix, and we can do that very, very quickly with using a recruiter. Then we need to understand, okay, well, if it is with the vendor, is there goodwill associated? So meaning, okay, if the vendor only gets the business and they're repeated customers, so we could need to evaluate, are these one-time customers or these repeat customers? Meaning, they'll use the business over and over and over. If it is repeat customers, then we need to understand, okay, well, this revenue could be attached really solely directly to the relationship that the customer has with the owner or with whoever's doing the job. So then we would need to be like, okay, well, we can't just bring someone out and replace them instantly. We need to do some sort of a handover. So let's just say it is the vendor. We would, in this case, okay, to the vendor, they have to stay on maybe 12 months and they would have to do a handover. So let's just say the person that we get with this recruiter, they and the vendor go to the jobs and they sort of do a transfer. Hey John, nice to meet you, blah blah. I've also got Bill with me. Bill's going to be helping you and doing the work with you. So there's some sort of introduction and there's like a transfer over. Now this is going to be important if they're repeat customers and the customers only have the relationship with the vendor, not necessarily with the business, etc. As well as if this is a business to where they're all just new clients all the time, we don't really have to think like that, because if they're getting customers, all their customers, say from marketing, which we do know they're running, they could just be brand new customers, and the relationship doesn't matter between the vendor and the owner of the customer and the vendor of the business, right? We can easily replace someone with just using a recruiter or a job ads, etc. So that would be an interesting one to know. Okay. So then what I would also be thinking is, what's the profitability on each service? So for service businesses, we want a gross profit of minimum 80%, and I'll give you a reason for that. One, you got to make sure you fix costs, which we'll get through later, cover your margin. But an interesting one is, let's just say you do have 20% margin. Let's say that's your net, that's your profit margin, right? Profit margin's 20%. Now, when you run marketing, let's say it's 20% and you're not running marketing, right? When you run marketing, your marketing is going to eat up 20% of profit. So the way you would sort of think about that is marketing cost is going to be around 20% of revenue. So if you've only got 20% profit, then essentially once you start running marketing, you've got zero profit. So this is why for us to look at a business and be like, yeah, I can grow that, I can run some ads, I can run marketing, but our profit's already only 20%, then as soon as you run marketing, you're going to have 0%. So what we're looking for is these businesses to have like, say, 30 to 40%. So when we do run marketing and we do decide to grow the business, right, we know our margins is just going to go back down to 20, and we're fine with 20. Comfortable with 20% for these type of businesses if we're able to get utilization through marketing growing the business. So that's one thing to always be aware of. Let's just rub some stuff out so we can have some room. What else we got next? Oh, is there anything in revenue that I would consider? Let's break down, where's it coming from? Yeah, an interesting one. Okay, so we can see that they're running marketing, right? So here. So what I would want to know is, where are they running marketing to? Which service? So let's just say they're running 80% of the marketing to new system installation and 20% to new service repair. But let's just say the CAC on service repair, so cost to acquire a customer, is $50, right? Let's just say new systems is $300. And let's just say the profit, the LTV, so CAC to LTV, so CAC and lifetime value on this one is 5 to 1, meaning, so it's $50, we're getting paid $500. I think that's 5 to 1. Or is it 250? Let's make it 10 to 1. $500 for $50 lead, right? Or $50 booked job. And let's just say the CAC to LTV on new system installation was only 2 to 1. So they're spending $300 to make $600. Now, their marketing agency or whoever's running the marketing might just have left it like that and just been like, yep, this is good. Not realizing the potential that they're leaving here, to where if they were to instead spend, say, 80% of this $62,000, if they were to instead spend 100% in new service repair, then their profitability of the business would dramatically increase, because we've got a 10 to 1 LTV on that. So every $1 we spend on marketing over a span of, say, 12 months, we're getting $10 back, rather than this offer, which is new system installation, to where they're only getting for every $1 they put in, $2 back. So that's an interesting one to know. You can also understand, say, you can go by the metric also CAC to lifetime gross profit, so LTGP, which is, okay, I'm not going to work out the math on this, but let's just say the gross profit on new installation was only 60%, this was 80%. This would make it even more attractive, because you've got higher gross profit margins on this service repair on this on this offer as well. So these are the things that I'll be like, okay, these are things that I could quickly make changes within the business and dramatically improve the financials and operations of the business. Is there anything else that I would consider? This is sort of high level, but I'd maybe think of like, okay, is there ascension between these types of products, and is there like, actually, I'd think of this, to be honest. What is the LTV? What is the lifetime value of a current customer? So for that, you get the revenue. So the revenue is 2.1 million, and then I would divide it by how many customers they have. So let's just say the LTV, I'm not going to work it out. Let's say the LTV is 1,000. Well, let's go like $500, right? But we know potentially if we were to add up all the services that we do offer, the maximum lifetime value is say $3,000. So we could potentially be making an extra $1,500 off these customers, but we're churning them. Like, for whatever reason, they're churning. We're not getting them back for, let's just say they came in for a service and repair, but when for whatever reason we're not able to upsell them or get them onto another type of service, right? We're not installing a system where we could and we have the potential to. Why aren't we? So maybe, okay, well, I know how to, I have systems, maybe you know how to, or you've got some sort of plan on being able to convert these customers that only get one thing and upsell them. Maybe you just sell system, email flows, or you just you could do it through marketing, I guess. You could have it through properly training to sell the installation people or HVAC people to properly be able to upsell and identify and do treatment plans for the person. Anyway, rambling on. But those are the things I would consider. Just understanding what's my current LTV revenue per customer, what's my upside, what I could potentially make, what's the gap between it, how am I going to close that gap? Those are the things I would think of. So let's just go cost of goods. So cost of goods for this one is 53%. Gross profit margins is 43%. So yeah, this is a business to where, you know, we're aiming for 80%, and at the moment it's 40%. So we could be like, okay, well, what's high? Equipment and materials. Interesting, 34%. Technical labor, 19%. Subcontractor costs, 3.7%. What would be interesting is knowing their pricing. Because if they're underpriced, as well as their close rate, actually. So let's just say every house, and they do a consultation, every house they go up, they're closing, let's just say 80%. Now that's a high close rate. Closing every 80% of every sort of consultation or sales meeting that you guys have. What we're aiming for is actually 40%. If we're over 50% close rate, it means our pricing is too low. So let's just say we are closing 80%, and that's telling me, well, actually, I could increase the prices here. Now, if I increase the prices, let's just say with a close rate at 80%, I could maybe increase the price by 20%. I could instantly, just by increasing the pricing by 20%, increase gross profit by an extra 20. Or, to be honest, it would be net income, profit, bottom line profit by 20%, just by increasing my prices by 20%. So that's an interesting one as well, where I could instantly see value in terms of, okay, from day one, just increasing my prices by an extra 20%, I can increase my net margin by another 20% as well. So I could go from 20% margin to now 40% and be very profitable. And this could be a business worthwhile actually taking over. So that would be an interesting one that I would consider as well, just seeing how they're pricing and what their current close rate with consultations that they do now. Okay. So technical labor direct, you'd want to see whether or not the vendor is being paid out of this. So let's just say the vendors included in this number, $402,000. And let's just say they're not working up. So you're going to take out the vendor's wage out of that $400,000, but you've got to replace it with someone. So this is where you'll need to figure out, okay, if I were to replace him with someone, what are they going to cost? And let's just say that person's actually going to cost, what the vendor is currently doing, high skill level, blah, blah, that's going to cost you $150,000. So yes, you'd be saying, let me get my pen out. Where is it? Yes, I'd be taking $100K out of here, but I would be also adding on 150k. So this would be actually 452. So let's just write this down. Maybe I can do text. Let's go this 452, make that bigger. 452k. Yep. Okay. Subcontractor costs, same sort of thing. I mean, see where that's coming from. Would I think of anything else? Equipment and materials. You can see if there's any one-off purchases. Now, if there are one-off purchases, you could take that off as well. So let's just say I'm gonna make it simple, but I'm not gonna run the P&L. But let's just say they've brought some equipment that are one-off purchases, and you don't need to purchase another one for a couple of years. You could say maybe, okay, I'm gonna wipe 100k off for that. Okay, so that then would go down to 619 instead of 719. Okay, so let's just figure more stuff out. Salaries and admin wages. Okay. Now, let's just say all the staff are staying on, so this number is not going to change. How am I thinking? Admin wages. That could technically be vendor's wage, but let's just say the vendor's wage is in technician labor. So let's just say that is going to be it. For a brick and mortar, this percentage, there's probably not, there is like sort of metrics that you do want to hit. Typically, in a lot of cases, your staff and wages cost should be around 20% of revenue, depending on the industry. Vehicle and fuel. Now, I'm going to assume because it's HVAC, they're driving to the place, so yes, that would be an expense that wouldn't be an add back. But sometimes you have the vendor's car and fuel added onto here, which you would need to then take off as well. But let's just say this is part of the business. Marketing and advertising. This is going to be an interesting one because let's just say they're using an agency, and that agency, their retainer is 10k. And my experience, so I spend over 6 figures a day on marketing. So I can say this with a lot of confidence and experience, is that marketing agencies are generally full of shit. And when you see one on a P&L, how would I actually look at it? I would act as if I would figure out how much revenue is this agency actually generating to the top line. And you can work that out. You need to work that out if you see that you've got marketing and advertising. How much revenue is this marketing actually contributing to the top line? Because chances are you're going to be paying maybe a $5,000 retainer, and they're only, which is what you pay the agency, and they're only maybe spending $2,000 in actual ad spend, and that ad spend may be only generating you $5,000 a month, right? So when you look at it, you're actually losing money by bringing in a in-house marketing agency. The best skill, alongside just learning how to do acquisitions and whether or not you're doing QLA or anything, is actually marketing. Because and there's so much content on YouTube, please, it will make, when you start to operate these businesses that you take over, knowing how to run marketing. And marketing is going to help you with demand. So if you're taking over the business and you need to fill up its books, that's when you have a demand issue, and you need to, bring in customers. You need to grow the business. You don't want to rely on someone else to essentially be in charge of generating and running your business. Like, the most important part of business is generating income, right? Are you going to allow someone else to be in control of that, or are you going to want to learn that skill set for yourself? So not only is it in control of the demand aspect, but it's also in control of the supply aspect. Meaning, This is new customers. This is supply, meaning your employees, meaning staff, meaning contractors, the people that are responsible for actually doing the work. That is also comes from a skill of knowing how to market. If you know how to run ads, or if you know how to look. The rule is, generally, if you only need to hire them once in the business, use a recruiter. If you need to hire them multiple times, a receptionist or anything like that, use job ads, use whatever, right? That is sort of the rule. But this is why I go back to marketing. It's just, when you're trying to operate a business, if you know how to control those two levers, you are so much confident. You have so much more confidence in actually making these decisions. And when you evaluate this business and you take them over, you really know what the business could actually do here. You aren't sort of just guessing, hoping that the business might, survive or thrive and grow. You actually have direct control over that, and you do that through marketing. In most cases, most businesses. Some businesses, it's actually not. It's not really a marketing play. You don't really need marketing. But in most cases, it's going to come down to that. Okay, that's my little ramble. Insurance is something that you want to make sure. Generally, the insurance you'll have different insurance policies. So the vendor might be, in this case, using a really cheap policy to where, actually, no, I'm going to need to get a more premium insurance, blah, blah, blah. You might actually pay more than 25 grand for that. So you might need to up this to say, and you can easily do this. You can just get a quote from an existing, an insurance agency, and they'll tell you roughly how much this business would cost. Let's just say it's $35, $35K for you. It was $25K for them because they wanted to cheap out. You would actually add that onto the P&L as an add back, meaning you take it away from the EBITDA, reducing the purchase price. Rent and utilities, same thing. Rent increases normally 4% a year, depending on the lease contract, so you need to factor in, okay, your rent was $40K last year, what's it now this year, with a 4% increase. Rent, you kind of want it within under 20% of revenue normally as well. That's sort of the rule. If it's over 20%, you either have two options: you increase your revenue, or you find a different location. But look, just try and increase your revenue. It fixes that problem. Rent's going to be interesting. If you can't actually increase your revenue because the business is actually capped in terms of, hey, you can only do so much because you're already at capacity, then there's not much room you can do with reducing the percentage of rent. So you got to figure out either increase your costs with what you're charging currently, or what else could you do? No, I think you can only really increase your costs if you're already at demand capacity. Tools and equipment and maintenance. This is something where, for example, tools and equipment, there could be one-off purchases. That's an obvious one. But I would sort of take this at face value. For tools and maintenance, just look back on their P&Ls and see what it averages out normally in percentage, and see what the average industry percentage would be. Is it in line with what's shown here? So let's just say the year prior it was also 1.2%, or around that number, and the year before that was also around that number. You would be pretty confident being like, okay, yep, 25K is good. Licensing and software, same thing. If you are part of a group and you want to change CRMs or anything, because if you got looking to get multiple locations, you might consolidate all the CRMs and softwares onto one platform. You could reduce that, you might not, blah blah. Licensing and compliance. Same thing, it depends on what licensing and compliance is required. Let's just say we're in industry to where the vendor actually holds the license, and because they're leaving, you then have to buy a new license, and that might cost you X amount of money. That could be an interesting one that you might need to be aware about. Interest experience. That's not EBITDA. It's interest, not EBITDA. Income tax, blah blah. Okay, so now we got to figure out the EBITDA. How to do math. So EBITDA would be get your revenue, add that up. We've got to now add back our wages. So from 402, we've got to add this onto it. So 719 plus 452 plus 78. I'm not going to actually do the math. It's going to tell you how you do it. Add all these up. We've already taken interest off. The EBIT's there, I guess. So just add. You can add, say, the 10k there and the 50k there, and that's your new EBITDA. Okay, so let's just figure out then how we would actually do the let's make a little scenarios of like how we could come up with the multiple and what would give that multiple. So let's say the vendors only going to stay on for 12 months. We've got maybe a 10-year lease, 12 months, vendors staying on. What else? All the employees are staying on. We don't really know that yet. You never know whether or not the employees stay on. And there's not really any way to actually find out and lock them in. No matter what the vendor says, you can't actually lock someone inside a contract. So if you were to take over the business first day and prior to that they've agreed they're going to all work for you, blah, blah, they could end up actually just hating you and walk out. So there's no actual real way to really say, hey, all the staff are staying on, blah, blah. Apart from, the best probably way to do it would be not actually saying that and telling the employees that the vendors fully sold their business. The best way to frame it is, hey, let's say the owner frames it like this to the employees. Hey, I've partnered with XY Group. They're going to help me with the marketing and just growing the business. And they're sort of like a silent side partner to us. That means there's no alarm bells. They're seeing that like everything's pretty much the same. The vendors managing them, owning them, doing all the work the same. Nothing's really changing about the business. So there's no real reason for any employees to exactly leave. If you're doing it on the other hand to where the vendor was leaving from the get-go, from day one, it carries risk, right? Carries risk to where, fuck it, I'm only here because I like the owner and I don't really trust a random person just taking over the business, blah, blah. The only thing you would probably do is prior, maybe a week before the business is meant to close, go and meet all the staff, get to know them, and just fill it out whether or not people will leave, and just ask them, hey, are you going to stay on? Do you look to stay on? And the best way would probably see what the employees actually, what are they looking to get out of a career, and maybe help them build some sort of career path for them to be incentivized to stay on. That would probably be, and I can do another video about that, like how you actually retain your employees a bit better than normal by sort of incentivizing them constantly. Won't do that in this video. So where we are, employees staying on 12-month LTV, CAC to LTV. CAC to LTV. Let's just say it's blended 3-to-1. What else? Churn. Let's just go churn. Let's act as if pretty much 90% of customers churned, meaning only 10% came back. Like, it was that bad. Meaning they're always, like, this business is pretty much a treadmill. Meaning they always have to spend money. They're always having to acquire new customers rather than just keeping and making money off their existing customers. Signs of a, not an ideal type of business. Churn 90%. I'll think of more. Let's just start with this. I would go, okay. I wouldn't make my decision and sort of multiple based off my potential. I would always make it of what it currently is. And this is really the range that we're dealing with here. It's really just either 3 to 5 times. Straight from the bat and the get-go, I wouldn't pay more than 3 times for a business like this. And the main reason, look, is just the CAC to LTV is low. The vendor's not staying on. They're getting money up front and they're staying on 12 months, which really is nothing. It's really it's more of just a transfer period. We do have the risk because the vendor's not staying on that long. The employees could leave to where then I've got even more screwed because the employees in this business, they're all attached directly to the revenue. So I do have risk there. Let's just say there's like 3 employees plus the owner plus 1. So I'm guaranteed to lose 1. And the owner could be very close to another one. Like I could easily lose half my revenue in 12 months. I mean, is there anything else? Like, for this to get to a 5, right? The LTV would need to be like maybe a 10 to 1. 10 to 1's really good. Like even a 7 to 1 would be good. The vendor would be staying on, say, 3 years minimum. Lease is good. I'm happy with the lease. Churn, I would like this business to say have a sub 10% churn rate. So that would be how it gets to a 10 to 1 CAC, LTV to CAC, because its churn rate is, say, 10%, and it's actually able to, sell additional services over and over and over to their existing customer base. This would be an interesting one. No, it wouldn't. Not really relevant. I was going to say... no, I won't bring that up. What else could we say would bring it to 5 times multiple? I'd say with this business it's like somewhat like that. Now we could see easily the upside, right? We could be like, well, we know our CAC for this one, we said it was $50. It's currently spending $62,000 and we know it only generated, say, $5,000 worth of revenue. Oh no, $7,000 worth of revenue was, right? So we could be like, okay, if we were to put, say, $60,000 all into service and repair, we know it's a $100 CAC. We know that's, do I want to work it out? It's a significant increase without really doing much. Okay, then we know how we can get demand in terms of up to capacity in terms of demand quite easily, just by spending more on marketing within the right sort of offer. What we then need to figure out, okay, well, we're going to very quickly get demand capped. We then need to think of supply constraint, which is just more employees. So then we got to figure out recruiting more, what are these HVAC people? More contractors, blah, blah. Okay, let's do the math on that. Okay, if I were to spend, where's my pen? If I were to spend $50,000 on recruitment fees, that could, say, get me, let's maybe round it up, five new staff, each one of these staff. So we'll do the math. So there's 4 currently. So each employee is doing around $500,000. Okay, that's actually pretty good. So if we were to let's half this number. Let's make it 50k gets us 2 new staff. Okay, so we spent 50k. We've got 2 new staff that's able to increase the top line revenue by an extra $1 million. Okay, that's pretty good. And we can even work it out in terms of make it an absolute no-brainer for you to understand. So let's just say out of $1 million, they make $300,000 profit, and we'll just say we've got a 3 times multiple on that. So essentially, we just pay 50 grand in recruitment fees. We make $900,000 in value for the business. That's how stupid and of a no-brainer it is to just pay a recruiter. So let's rub that out. What was I talking about? Yeah. So we've got supply and demand constraints. Sort of, we have some sort of plan how we can increase the revenue by an extra $1 million. We have another plan to increase our profit margin by an extra 20%, just by increasing the prices by 20% and bringing our overall close rate on these, consultations or sales calls that we have, whatever, right? Down to now 35 to 40%, down from 80%. We know we can increase the volume of leads into a way more profitable service and offer. What else can we do? We'll leave it there. So from there, we would then present the offer, get our little letter of offer written up, drafted, and it's going to be like, we're going to pay you, what was the EBITDA? The EBITDA, let's call it the EBITDA, it's not accurate to the P&L. Let's call it the EBITDA 300k. 300k EBITDA, we're going to pay you 3 times that. 3x either. So we're going to pay you $900,000. Okay. And you're going to work for 12 months. So we're going to pay you 70% up front. So we're going to pay, I don't know, is it 650 or something? Yeah, 650 I think. We're going to pay you 650k up front. And we're going to pay you the remaining after that 12-month period. You could push it back more, but like the vendor is, you normally tie the delayed payment to how long typically the vendor is going to stay on for. You don't have to. It's just how well you can negotiate. Like I could push this back to say, okay, we're going to pay you over 3 years. If you can get away with that, the longer you can push it back for, the better, always. But normally, tough negotiations happen and the vendor wants it, all the money to be paid up by the time they leave the business. So we're going to pay you $650 up front. We're going to pay you the remaining up to 12 months. Let's say 12 months for the sake of this. And letter of offer document is quite simple. It's really just, what are we going to pay you over what period of time? You could even like have a clause to where we're going to pay you the remaining amount, but you only get paid the remaining amount if the EBITDA is maintained or over 300k. So if you fuck us over and you decide to just not work or just ruin the business for us, or if you just lied about the financials, we're not going to pay you that 300k. You're not going to get it. And you can screw me over a bit. Just do what you want. I don't care. And just like, fuck with the P&L. Increase your marketing spend. And so it's always just offset to where it's never hit 300k. You can never pay the vendor that amount of money. Talk to a lawyer before you start doing that shit, but you can do it. Okay, so we've got a letter of offer. I'm going to have a little exclusivity in there. So 180 days exclusivity. You can't go to any other buyer. You're stuck with us. And the purchase price is always conditional, because it's non-binary, it's conditional to further due diligence. So, as I say in a lot of my videos, you're just trying to get this letter of offer done as quickly as possible, so you lock them into that exclusivity, then you start the real due diligence phase. These points are good if they want 5 times, these are the things that you bring up. Be like, no, this is why you're not getting 5 times. And if you're using a broker, and this is where the brokers can make your life a bit more difficult, because I think normally they get paid a percentage of the purchase price. So they're always going to try and get a higher multiple. They're always going to tell you that it's worth X amount. But look, if you stick to these principles, you really will know whether or not it's a 3 to 5 times multiple on it. Okay, so next thing would be conduct your bids, your due diligence. I would say, if I was to show this to the bank, right, I would want to show, actually no, we got to figure out purchase price, what's the debt servicing ratio on a 650k loan. So if we're getting 6,000, well, that's more than fine. Okay, so let's just say I'm getting 70%. I don't know what 70% of 900k is. Assume it's 650. So let's just say we're getting 650 from the bank, and our EBITDA is 300. 300k EBITDA. All right. So, I can get a loan. You can work it out like this. So the average bank loan is going to be 7-year principal and interest, P&I, and interest rates is going to be between 6 to 11% on what in terms of what Shylock fucking interest rates are going to be paying. Typically, your EBITDA is going to cover your debt by minimum 2 times. So let's just say the debt on this is 150k a year. So your EBITDA on this, so you're going to be paying, using that math, you're going to be paying 150k a year in debt for this business loan, which we know, based on the EBITDA, we're able to cover 2 times. We're in the bank's lending parameters. You could also figure out, just talking to the bank or using this sort of principle, go 7 years normally, what it would look like in terms of principal and interest payments. So let's just say, okay, yep, we've got it in terms of, we've got the 2 to 1 ratio in terms of, no, it's not, it's going to be way below 150. What am I smoking? All right, I've done your service. I've gone asked my Claude. It's 112k a year in debt. What the fuck? $112,000 a year in debt, and our EBITDA is 300. So pretty good in terms of profit. And this is the difference between paying like a 3 times multiple and a 5 times multiple. I'm sure if that was at a 5 times multiple, you wouldn't be, you probably wouldn't even cover the debt service ratios. So that's why it's important that you always do your due diligence and be strategic in the multiple that you pay, and not just giving what the vendor wants. Push back. Because you got to think like, only 0.1% of businesses actually freaking sell. Like, it is so hard and so rare for businesses actually to ever sell. And so for them to have any sort of negotiation power, just tell them to go fuck themselves. Because there is so many deals out there that you never, ever, ever have to really do a bad deal to where you're overpaying for shit. and you're doing something just for the sake of it. Don't get yourself in that situation. All right, where were we? We were at the figuring out the parameters in the bank. So we know in terms of the lending parameters, we're like more than fine. We're way over 2 times debt servicing ratio. Fuck. Do I want to give you this information? Alright, okay, I'll give you it. Don't misuse it. You fucking trying to fraud the bank or some bullshit. Okay, so how you'd get the loan and the remaining money. So let's just say you're getting 70% from the bank, and you've got 30% left over, and you don't have 30% because you have no money. You're broke, but you still want to get this deal done. But you got to show the bank that you're putting your own equity in. So here this is going to work. And don't fuck me over here. But what you do, you essentially, okay, this is the vendor. This is the little vendor. The vendor is going to give you a loan on paper, you or the directors of the company, a loan on paper for that 30%. I don't know the 30%. Let's call it 300k. So, owner loans you on paper 300k. You then will lend your company that you've set up, or the group, as a director's loan for 300k. So that shows that you're putting money into the deal, right? You've gotten the money originally from the vendor on paper. You then, as a director, do a director's loan to the company to where you can show to the bank that you're putting in your own equity. Now, how you not mislead the bank with this? If the bank asks, is there vendor finance involved? Where are the directors getting the money that they put in? You have to tell the truth. The way you do this is that the bank, how do I say this without misleading the bank? Essentially, if the bank asks where this money comes from or anything, you got to tell the truth that it comes from vendor finance. Essentially, what I'm saying, the bank doesn't know what to do with vendor finance, so they don't really see it as equity. But what we're doing here, because there's nothing actually wrong with directors getting a loan and using that loan to give to the bank as their own equity. There's nothing that's above board. The only thing you need to do is if the bank asks you where the directors are getting the money, you have to tell that it's come from X, Y, Z. Here's the terms. If they don't ask that, you can say on the balance sheet, here it is. We're putting our own 300k. This is the terms, and look, they'll probably ask you the terms, but they'll also, because it's coming from directors who are also guaranteeing the loan and a second note, they probably won't ask too many questions. This all depends on your own setup, how well you have a relationship with the bank. Please, please, please do not go and commit bank fraud with this shit, because you want to close a deal. You really need to be truthful with the bank, but here's one way you can do it in terms of this is how you use vendor finance as your own equity within the deal to where the bank can actually see it as your own money. You just have to do it above board. Okay? Whew. Let's see what you guys come up with there. What are we at? 49 minutes. I'll do another one of these videos. That was pretty cool. Yeah. Look, if you guys want to email me, as I said in all of my videos, send me a link or whatever. Yeah, alright. Peace out. I'll make another video tomorrow. See ya, bye.